The Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Bridges, Cook, Coram, Court, Crowder, Danielson, Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Foote, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hill, Heisey, Holbert, Lee, Lundeen, Marble, Moreno, Patterson, Priola, Rankin, Rodriguez, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Story, Tate, Todd, Williams, Winter, Woodward, Zenzinger. Mr. President.
Here. With 35 present, 0 absent, 0 excused, we have a quorum. Members, would you please stand for the presentation of the colors this morning, led by American Medical Response of Colorado Honor Guard, who is here in recognition today of First Responders Day. The Honor Guard members in attendance are Lieutenant Commander Curtis Roberts, Lieutenant Mark Brown, Lieutenant Deb Cardozo, and Jasmine Diaz. Please remain standing for the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner by Colleen Reno, a paramedic with American Medical Response. Senator Janot, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Mr. President. Members and guests, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Report! Arms! Colors! Color turn! March! Approval of the journal. Senator Foote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the Journal of Thursday, March 7th, 2019 be dispensed with and the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Committee reports.
March 7, 2019, the Community Education has under consideration and hearing of the following appointments or recommends appointments to be placed on the consent calendar and confirmed. Members of the Colorado Student Leaders Institute Executive Board for term expiring July 7, 2009. Kristen Ingle Waters, PhD of Denver, Colorado, service person employed as an educator at high school on occasion by the resignation of Sean Precious of Denver, Colorado, appointed. For terms expiring July 7, 2020, Jennifer Louise Huffman of Dolores, Colorado, service person employed as an educator in high school and rural district, reappointed. James Nickel Thurman of Denver, Colorado, service person from community who has an interest and experience in education, appointed. March 7th, 2019, Community Education. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee of the following, Senate Bill 161 be referred favorably. Committee on Appropriations. March 7th, 2019, Community Education. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee of the following, Senate Bill 129 be amended as follows. As submitted, be referred to Committee to hold a favorable recommendation.
Senate Services.
Correctly printed. Senate Bill 187, 188 correctly revised. House Bill 1083, 1148 correctly revised. House Bill 1105 correctly enrolled. Senate Bill 9 and 25.
Third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 77?
Senate Bill 77 by Senators Priola and Williams and Representative Hansen concerning measures that affect the development of infrastructure used by electric motor vehicles in connection with establishing a process of the Colorado Public Utilities Commission whereby the Public Utility may undertake implementation of electric motor vehicle infrastructure program within the area covered by the Utility Certificate of Public Conveyance and Necessity.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move Senate Bill 1977 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 77? Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. It has come to my attention that the AARP has issues with Senate Bill 77. Their concerns is as it relates to where these charging stations are going to be. And it's my understanding that they're going to be in Denver, Pueblo, and Grand Junction. I represent a very diverse community in Arapahoe County where we have a high number of seniors because Fitzsimmons used to be where the Anschutz Medical Center is currently. And they're concerned about the increase of their public utility rates. And so I was wondering if you can respond to some of the issues that the seniors are having with this bill this Senate Bill 77 because they believe that they're going to have some adverse consequences as it relates to this bill. What they're saying is that it would increase their Excel and Black Hill utilities bills by $50 to $75 a year. And some people who might have resources might believe that that's not much. But many of the seniors that I know, they are on fixed incomes, which means they only have a certain amount of money to live on from day to day. They have to consider their rent, they have to consider their food, they have to fit their gas, all kinds of other things. And to add on an additional expense could be burdensome for them. So I'd like for the bill sponsors to please respond to AARP, which is our seniors. I don't know what our general population is as it relates to the numbers of seniors that are across the state of Colorado. But can you give them some reassurance? Can you explain to them? Can you justify for them? Is there rationale to support Senate Bill 77 in a way that doesn't harm our seniors across the state of Colorado?
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President, and to the good senator from Arapahoe County, and to everyone else. I hope you took the time to read this report I had put on all of your desks yesterday. It's a lengthy report. It's 4 pages. Probably the most important part of it is figure 5 on the back of the second page. And the study was done concerning PG&E as well as Southern California Edison and the usage with EVs and how it relates to saving all ratepayers. And I underscore all ratepayers, millennials, seniors, those who own EVs and those who don't. And it's the reason I support this legislation. Because as I learned minoring in econ at the University of Colorado, when you double your sales, the marginal cost of the widget goes down. And that is true for widgets or cell phones or hamburgers and also for electrons. And that's what this report shows. So I submit to you that Senate Bill 77 should come out of the state Senate 35-0 because a vote against Senate Bill 77 is a vote against lowering electric rates for all ratepayers in investor-owned utilities, Excel and Black Hills. Thank you.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition of this bill and ask for a no vote. It's truly weird times down here. I think for the first time, AARP and I are on the same page. Before this bill, you might say I'm an AARP virgin. And today, they're my best friend. You know, the good senator from Arapahoe County kind of stole my thunder, but I concur with everything she said. You know, basically what this bill is a redistribution of wealth going the wrong way. We're taking $50, $75 per month, or per year, I'm sorry, out of the hands of the people that are on fixed incomes, and we're giving it to people that make over $100,000 a year. 67% of people that drive EVs make over $100,000 a year. Think about it. So we're taking money from people on fixed incomes, giving it to people that drive EVs that make $100,000 a year, and we've subsidized EVs already to $5,000 from state tax credits, $7,500 from federal tax credits. Let the EV owners pay their own way. You know, the other thing is the Colorado Energy's office has a $15 million grant for EV infrastructure. The governor's recent executive order has directed the remaining part of the $70 million from the VW settlement to ChargePoint so that they can build EV infrastructure. They're also getting, from the Energy Office, $10 million from ChargePoint for $240 million in Series H private investments for the same purpose. So $95 million to build out the EV structure. We don't need to subsidize EVs on the backs of senior citizens or the rest of the ratepayers. So I'd ask for a no vote on this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'm here to convince you why you should study economics at the Air Force Academy and not anywhere else in Colorado, apparently. The argument that was made is we have to increase the subsidy and we have to give permission to increase rates so that your rates can go down. Colleagues, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to say that we have to step into this market. We have to step into this market to give permission to charge more so that we can charge less. Colleagues, I don't understand how that logic works out, very candidly. In fact, we have the exact opposite logic in place here. I understand, I love electric vehicles. If I could afford one, I would buy one in a heartbeat. That commute back and forth to Colorado Springs every day just screams for enhanced autopilot, and I would purchase one in a minute. The challenge we have here is ensuring there's enough infrastructure to give people a chance to drive these as they would drive normal internal combustion engines. And I understand the argument that in order to build out more infrastructure, we have to find a way to pay for it in rate-driven utilities. But this is in effect what we're doing. We're saying every single person out there can pay a few dollars more a year so that a very few people can drive their electric vehicle farther. Now, maybe in the long run, maybe in 20 or 30 years, maybe that begins to make sense as the study on our desk suggested. However, that's not our task. Our task isn't up here to say, how do we make sure we charge everyone for a long-term change in technology that may or may not come about, that may or may not be the most efficient way to do it. It is exactly picking winners and losers. It is exactly us, the 35 of us here in the room, saying we're going to charge everyone so that we can predict where a market is going in 20 to 30 years. I don't think that's wise. I don't think it's prudent. I don't think it makes economic sense. And quite frankly, if we're going to be economically or politically consistent on some of this, in the past, many who owned electric vehicles took a 17C and didn't vote for electric vehicle legislation in Colorado. And my suggestion would be, if you're going to be consistent on taking a 17C in the past on this legislation, you should take a 17C today.
Senator Priola.
To the good senator from El Paso County, this bill will not affect me at all because the nature of the kind of car I drive, they have their charging station in place, and if there is going to be a hope for General Motors or VW Saab or VW Audi to get into the game and have consumer choice and eliminate range anxiety. Again, 80 to 90% of charging at EVs happens at night at people's homes. I ask for an I vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senator Tate?
Thank you, Mr. President. I did look at the report that my colleague from Adams County mentioned, and it is true from California that revenues associated with charging electric vehicles exceeded costs, and so they made money. California is a different environment than we have here. The rate structures are different. And I would also submit to you that if there is money to be made, then why does it need to be rate-based? That's what I would like to know. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the passage of Senate Bill 77 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? The minority leader, Senator Rodriguez, Senator Sonnenberg, Senator Marble, Senator Crowder, Senator Hill, Senator Heisey, Cook, Lundeen, Gardner, Smallwood, Woodward, Rankin, Tate, Scott. Please add the president. Senator Moreno. With a vote of 18 ayes, 17 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 77 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Foote, Majority Leader Bridges, Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1083.
House Bill 1083 by Representatives Hooten and Van Winkle and Senators Williams and Cook concerning reclassification of the regulation of athletic trainers from registration to licensure.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move House Bill 1083 and ask for an aye vote on third reading and final passage.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1083? Seeing none, the motion before the body is passage of House Bill 1083 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? Senators Lundin, Sonnenberg, Gardner, Smallwood, Woodward, Heisey, Hill, Marble, Scott, with a vote of 26 ayes, 9 no votes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, House Bill 1083 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senator Janal, Senators Moreno, Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1148.
House Bill 1148 by Representatives Hayard and Senators Quorum and Gonzalez concerning changing the maximum jail sentence for certain crimes from 1 year to 364 days.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1148 on third reading of bills, final passage, and ask for an aye vote.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I want to talk about this bill. You may have noticed I've been noticeably absent from committee and on seconds. And it is not because I do not support the bill. I support this bill because this was brought to me, probably my attention about 2 years ago from the Dairy Association. And what changing this bill helps with, their workers who are here legal may get in a minor infraction, a Class 2 misdemeanor. Now, I understand what we're doing here, and I think this is a Band-Aid, but what we actually need to do is to address Class 2 misdemeanors. I do not believe that a worker in a dairy who has a calf in a little house that they keep the baby calves in, if the calf touches the sides turning around, that is a Class 2 misdemeanor. If they set off fireworks, that is a Class 2 misdemeanor. If you give a haircut, that is a Class 2 misdemeanor. Class 2 misdemeanors, when these individuals who are here legally in the United States to work get one of these Class 2 misdemeanors, they must go through the court system. Because if they just go in and plead guilty and pay the fine, they are subject to deportation. The illegal worker, on the other hand, can go in, pay the fine, be back on the street, and in the shadows, because there's not a known address to find them. So that is why I ran the bill. Now let me explain why I did not come forward and present the bill. When I was asked to run the bill, I said, absolutely, I believe in this bill, and this is the sponsor that I want to be working with. And there's nothing against the sponsor that I'm with. But a commitment was made to me that I would be running this bill with another Senate member. And I said, I'm sorry, but you cannot make a commitment and then change without letting me know. And the senator and I have talked this over. She was very gracious. She said, I understand what you're doing, and I will withdraw from the bill. I said, no, I think you've done a great job, and I've been through this once before, so you need the experience. But I will be supporting the bill, but then I will be asking to have my name removed as co-prime. Thank you.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I do want to acknowledge my good friend, my colleague from Montrose, and our conversations about this bill, because I do think that process matters. And so after we've had the conversation with advocates, and they understand why our words matter, and so and I appreciated our conversation about how that process should be moving forward. I do want to move, though, and talk about the importance of House Bill 1148, because the reason that I'm so excited about this bill is because it will promote court efficiency. A lot of times with lawful permanent residents, with visa holders, they go to court and they are charged with second-degree misdemeanors, and they have to go to trial on those cases because that one day renders them mandatorily deportable with no access to the immigration court system to try to plead for relief from mandatory deportation. And for that rationale, if we just change our statute from an M2 with a maximum penalty of 365 days down to 364 days, in that way, colleagues, defendants who are lawfully present, who are visa holders or permanent residents, will be able to take responsibility for their offenses and resolve their cases more efficiently. Mr. President, in committee, we did hear from the Colorado Bar Association, who testified in support of this bill because of the patchwork of municipal sentencing structures and county sentencing cases, that a lot of times attorneys are getting confused in terms of what offenses their clients can plead to and which offenses they cannot. And so for that reason, that's why this thoughtful bill will help clear our court backlogs, and for that reason, I do ask for an aye vote on House Bill 1148.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1148? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the passage of House Bill 1148 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? Senators Crowder, the Minority Leader, Marble, Cook, Lundin, Woodward, Smallwood, Rankin, Gardner, Scott, Hill. With a vote of 24 ayes, 11 no votes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1148 is passed. Co-sponsors. Co-sponsors. The Majority Leader, Senators Rodriguez, Priola, Foote, Donovan, Bridges, Moreno, Williams, Zenzinger, Court, Janal, Patterson, Lee, Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the reasons previously stated, I would ask that my name be removed as prime co-sponsor.
Senator Quorum's name will be removed as a sponsor, prime sponsor, on House Bill 1148. General order, second reading bills, consent. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of Whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of Whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Gonzalez will take the chair. The committee will come to order, and the court rule is relaxed.
Will the clerk please read the title of all the bills in the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
Senate Bill 141 by Senator Donovan, Representative Roberts, concerning the authority to create an entertainment district in connection with authorizing an entertainment district within a county or city and county and permitting an optional premises to be included in an entertainment district. Senate Bill 152 by Senator Williams, concerning the continuation of the Public Safety Communications Subcommittee in connection therewith, implementing the recommendations contained in 2018 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies. Senate Bill 151 by Senator Bridges, concerning the continuation of the Emergency Planning Subcommittee in connection therewith, implementing the recommendations contained in 2018 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption of all the bills on the consent calendar and their associated committee reports, which include Senate Bill 141 along with the Local Government Committee report, Senate Bill 152, and Senate Bill 151.
Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all of the committee reports on the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee reports are adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all of the bills in the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it clearly, and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee holds lead reports that are serious and following types of segment that makes following recommendation on Symbol 141 as amended, Symbol 152, Symbol 151, pass every order, gross place calendar for the reading of passage.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 141 as amended, Senate Bill 152, Senate Bill 151, passed on second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over general order's second reading of bills until Monday, March 11th, 2019.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The general order second reading of bills will be laid over until Monday, the 11th.
Senator Cook.
John Cook. At the end. Consideration of resolutions. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Resolution 004.
Senate Resolution 4 by Senators Garcia and Cook concerning the designation of September 27th as First Responder Appreciation Day in Colorado.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of Senate Resolution 004 and ask that it be read at length.
Mr. Carpenter, please read Senate Resolution 004 at length.
Senate Resolution 4 by Senators Garcia and Cook concerning the designation of September 27th as First Responder Appreciation Day in Colorado. Whereas, first responders risk their own lives and safety in the execution of their duties to protect the public on a daily basis. And whereas, first responders are the first line of defense for the public against threats, both domestic and foreign. And whereas, nationally, on average, first responders are injured on the job 3 times more often than workers in other occupations. And whereas, First responders experience extreme physical demands and hazardous situations that contribute to personal injury and death, including gunfire, vehicular accidents, assaults, and building collapses. And whereas first responders are exposed to occupation-related diseases such as cardiorespiratory disease, overexertion, and cancer. And whereas first responder deaths constitute 5% of occupational fatalities nationwide. And whereas first responders experience high levels of stress, and many struggle with mental health issues such as post-traumatic stress disorder, which family members of first responders also often develop. And whereas thousands of first responders have made the ultimate sacrifice, including police and sheriff's patrol officers who have an estimated fatality rate of 14.6 per 100,000 workers, more than twice the national average, a number that includes 3 officers who died in the line of duty in Colorado in 2018. And whereas first responders stand at the ready to come to the aid of the citizens of the United States of America 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas first responders are a vital part of our communities, not only standing ready to deal with emergencies, but also volunteering in our schools and community organizations. And whereas individuals, both career and volunteer, including police, fire, emergency medical services, search and rescue, and other organizations in the public safety sector, come together as a collective to aid the public in the event of an emergency. And whereas there are over 1 million firefighters in the United States, and over 800,000 of those are volunteer firefighters. And whereas there are over 800,000 emergency medical services personnel in the United States. And whereas there are over 750,000 state and local law enforcement officers working for nearly 18,000 law enforcement agencies around the country. And whereas Colorado joins the following states in designating September 27th as First Responders Appreciation Day: Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Arizona, Delaware, Illinois, Iowa, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Missouri, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Vermont, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. And whereas the Colorado General Assembly wishes to honor and support all first responders with an annual Day of Appreciation. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 72nd General Assembly of the State of Colorado that we, the members of the Colorado General Assembly, designate September 27th, 2019 as First Responder Appreciation Day, and that we recognize and honor all first responders who put their lives on the line daily to serve and protect the people of Colorado.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. There is an amendment, I believe, on the desk.
There is an amendment. Will the clerk please read Amendment L001?
Amendment L001 is in a resolution for by Senator Cook. Amend printed resolution, page 3, line 14. After police, insert Colorado, Fraternal Order of Police, Colorado
Senator
Police.
Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, please be seated. The amendment basically just inserts the Colorado Police Protective Association, the Fraternal Order of Police, and the Denver Police Protective Association as receiving the resolution.
Senator Cook, will you please move the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. President. My bad. I move L001.
Senator Cook, discussion on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. The amendment adds the Colorado Protective Association, the Fraternal Order of Police, and the Denver Police Protective Association as receiving this resolution.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L001? Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Amendment L001 is adopted. To the resolution. Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank all the first responders for being here, the firefighters, the law enforcement officers, and the EMTs. It's truly an honor to have you down in this building. I'm going to talk a little bit at first about the first responders behind the scenes, the ones that don't get enough credit and who are not appreciated like the ones out on the streets. I want to talk first off about the corrections officers and then also the dispatchers. Corrections officers, in my opinion, really have the toughest job in law enforcement. They have to keep people that are in jail, make them follow the rules, and these same people cannot follow the rules on the outside. So their job is extremely tough. Nobody really even thinks about the jail officers until there's an escape or until the community wants to build a jail in their neighborhood. Then that's the only time they really realize that we have, fine men and women working in the jail. Like I said, it's the toughest job in law enforcement, in my opinion, because we have more assaults on correction officers in Weld County than we did on our patrol officers. There's more uses of force against them. Again, they have to keep people that can't follow the rules, making them follow the rules. The other ones are the dispatchers. They are unsung heroes. I have 2 of them down here today from Weld County. Again, unsung heroes in law enforcement. They get it from both sides. So people call in, they're screaming and yelling, they're in a panic, and they don't know what to do. They're calling 911 because somebody just got assaulted or somebody got killed or there was an accident. And so they called dispatch, and they're yelling and screaming in one ear. And then the cops or the firemen are yelling in their other ear, like, hey, I'm calling in, why didn't you answer so quickly? You need to, respond a little bit faster. And so they get it from both sides. And, but without them, they truly are the first responders, because that's where people call in. And so they pick up the phone, they're the first responder, so that the other first responders can go out and do their job. And again, the corrections officer, they're the first responders in the jail facility. So I want to thank them for their service. The resolution talks about the high levels of stress for first responders and health issues and post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's why the good senator from Arapahoe County and I run some of the bills that we do, because we appreciate everything that the first responders do for us. Law enforcement has a high level of alcoholism, high level of suicides, because if you see some of the things that law enforcement and the fire service see, it wears on you. When you see on Christmas Eve a family of 4 driving down to see their family members get in a fatal accident, all 4 family members are killed, or 4 people in the car are killed, including the little kids, and their presents are spewing out over the highway or the county road, that wears on you. When you see a young girl hit by a train just crossing the tracks, that wears on you. When you see people that get shot in the head at close range or stabbed to death, when you see the worst that comes out in people, what man can do to man is just really kind of sad. And so no wonder they have, like I said, high rates of alcoholism and suicide. I was talking with, if anybody knows, fire guys know, law enforcement knows, there's a good-natured rivalry between, the fire and police. We love each other, but yet on the other hand, we're like family. We fight amongst ourselves, and we argue about who's better, law enforcement or fire guys. And we all know the answer to that. We all know that law enforcement is better. I was sitting at lunch one time with the fire chief. I lowered my standards. I went and had lunch with the fire chief, and we were talking. And he looks at me and goes, I can't do what you do. And I was a little surprised. And I'm thinking, because, God gave law enforcement the brains, and He gave the firemen all the good looks. And so I'm thinking, well, you can't do what I do. I said, I'm not going to run into a burning building. I said, that's just crazy. And then he looks at me and he says, no. Fire isn't evil. Fire just does what fire does. It's to be respected and not feared. He goes, but you, on the other hand, people want to kill you. Fire doesn't want to, man, not just in this room. I'm talking in general. He said, people want to kill law enforcement. You're the only profession where people actually look to kill you. We have officers being ambushed all over the country, and so I thought about that, and I'll probably remember that to the day I die. Even when I have Alzheimer's, I'll probably remember that statement, and I really appreciated what the fire chief had to say about it. I got to just throw this out. You know why God made cops, right? So firemen could have heroes, and right, guys? But anyway, yeah, tough crowd. Yeah, tip your waitresses. I'll be here all day. But anyway, we really appreciate what you all do, and we couldn't have a civilized country without law enforcement, the paramedics, and the fire service. So I just want to say again, thank you for your service.
Senator Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, colleagues. I want to thank the Senate sponsors, President Garcia and Senator Cook, for bringing this joint resolution, the Senate Resolution 004, recognizing and appreciating first responders in the state of Colorado. I have a few remarks, and I want to start with saying I want you to be safe out there. Be safe. Be safe. I represent a community and I represent a state that we appreciate law enforcement. The people I know aren't looking to do any harm to law enforcement. Because when people call the police, it's because they are in crisis. People call the police because something is happening. It might be that someone has burglarized their home. It could be as simple as being stranded on a highway. It could be as simple as, my child has been missing. Can you help me find my child? To law enforcement, I want to say, be safe out there. And when I see you dressed in your uniform, with your shields on and your patches on your badges, it doesn't matter what role you play in law enforcement, my words to you is to be safe out there. To don the uniform takes a certain type of attitude. It takes a certain type of person. I think the work that I do is difficult. But when I think about what you do, placing yourselves in harm's way, running towards danger, sometimes not knowing what kind of crime scene or scenario you might be entering into, you do so because the passion that you have to protect and serve. Be safe out there. When I think about the sacrifice that you make by putting your own self on the front line, I'm reminded of your loved ones. I'm reminded of the person that might fix your lunch before you leave the house. That partner that serves alongside you. They're saying the same thing that perhaps I'm saying. Be safe out there. I want you to know that the state of Colorado recognizes your role as law enforcement officers. We respect you, we appreciate you, and we depend on you. The good senator from Weld County mentioned the 911 operators. I always want to make sure that I acknowledge them because they don't get a chance to ride down in one of those vehicles with the lights doing all this kind of thing and people move over. They're sometimes in a dark room and someone calls 911 and someone always answers that call. And they're there to facilitate law enforcement getting to that scene. So for the 911 operators, I say thank you. I can't imagine day after day hearing the trauma that you must hear from people who are reaching out, asking for help. I believe that's what makes America great. We live in a country that you can call 911 and someone will answer the phone. I have a cell phone and there's some calls I don't take. I have a phone and if I don't recognize the number, I don't answer the call. But when you have operators who are responsible, and this is like they answer the call, and they dispatch the resources to get people the help that they need. That is awesome, that in the state and in our country, we have 911 and someone will answer the call and help. So in my closing remarks, I would say, be safe out there. I know that you're putting your life on the line. every single day, but the state of Colorado appreciates you, and we want you to be safe. Thank you, senators, for bringing this resolution.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor and the privilege to share a bit with you today about Cody Mooney, whose memorial service is at 1 p.m. today in South Metro Denver. Cody exemplifies our Colorado first responders. The heart, the integrity, the selflessness. Cody chose a career where he put his own life on the line to save the lives of others. And I think what is the deepest tribute to that life, when he passed away earlier this week from an aggressive brain tumor, he changed the lives of 55 other people as an organ donor. My father-in-law is alive today because he received a kidney from an organ donor. Cody saved lives during his life, and he saved lives in death. This is what Colorado first responders do. And to have his memorial service on the day when we're honoring first responders here is, I think, just so incredibly appropriate. So thank you to all of you who serve us, and thanks especially to Cody, and I ask for a moment of silence.
The Senate will observe a moment of silence and the chimes will ring. Thank you, colleagues. Senator Janal, we worked together too many years in the House.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam President. Got you back.
We all forget various times.
I rise in strong support for Senate Resolution 4. And it takes a special type of person to run towards chaos as everyone else is running away. It takes a special type of person to choose a career that requires them to spend as many holidays and special events at work as they do at home with loved ones. It takes a special type of person to routinely see the absolute worst of what society has to offer and still remain in positive perspective when they come face to face with someone experiencing the worst possible day of their life. It takes a special type of person to lay awake nights reliving a work experience that forced them to take the life of another person, yet still return to work and give their very best to serve and defend their community. It takes a special type of person to choose a profession which nationally has a very high number of their colleagues being killed per capita per year, even sometimes more than those in the military. Who are these people? They're all of you. They're first responders, they're police officers. Most call them, and I call them, police officers. Some refer to them as husband, others refer to them as wives. So others may call them a brother or a sister or a mother, but I was fortunate enough to call one Dad, my hero. My dad, Joseph Janal, served for over 25 years, keeping the city of Manchester, New Hampshire safe. And I understand the life of a police officer. I know the sacrifices the families of police officers and first responders make daily as they send their loved ones out the door with hugs and prayers. In the morning, I can still remember one morning, my mother and I was a very little girl. We were standing there at the window waving at my dad driving out of the driveway. And when we were waving goodbye, I saw my mother crying, and I asked what was wrong. And she really didn't say anything. She just gave me a hug. And as I got older, I understood. I also remember as a little girl, my dad hugging me very tight one night when he came home from work. He was also crying, and I never really saw my dad cry that often. There's only one other time when his mother passed away. But I didn't understand until I was older and told that a little girl had died in his arms after pulling her out of a car wreck. I've seen the toll this profession takes on a police officer's body and emotional state of being after confronting these difficult situations every day of your career. So I stand in strong support of Senate Resolution 4 for all of our first responders, including our sergeants and our officers here at the Colorado State Patrol who serve to protect us here at the Capitol every single day. Thank you.
President Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, let me just share that for the good senator and I, the good senator from Weld County and I, it's a great honor to welcome you to the state capitol this morning, and especially be in the Senate. From police officers and firefighters to paramedics and dispatchers, each of you play an incredibly important service in the state of Colorado in keeping our communities safe and healthy. As many of you might know, I've worked in emergency medical services for nearly 18 years, as an EMT, as a paramedic, currently as a faculty member teaching pre-hospital emergency medical services at a community college. We understand firsthand the challenges you face on a daily basis and your approach to courage and the sacrifices that you make with such physically, mentally, and emotionally strenuous work that you carry out day in and day out. It's one of the reasons why the good senator from Weld County and I shared this morning with various members why we're continuing to make public safety initiatives a top priority for all of us. It's one of the highlights of, and will continue to be, of this legislative session and prior legislative sessions in recognizing where we can play an important role in helping you all. It takes a great deal of bravery to be the first in an emergency situation, and our state owes you a great amount of debt and gratitude for your endless dedication in keeping Coloradans safe. Because of your service, Coloradans can go about their day knowing that if the worst happens, they are in good hands. It's a great privilege for us to recognize you before the Senate this morning and to thank each and every one of you for the work you do day in and day out. We are truly grateful for each of you. Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I renew my motion for the passage of SR 004 and request a roll call vote.
The motion is for the passage of Senate Resolution 004. A roll call vote has been requested. Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Bridges. Bridges, aye. Cook.
Aye.
Cook, aye. Quorum.
Excused.
Court. Court, aye. Crowder. Crowder, aye. Danielson. Danielson, aye. Donovan. Donovan, aye. Bimberg. Bimberg, aye. Fields. Fields, aye. Foot. Foot, aye. Gardner. Gardner, aye. Janal. Janal, Aye. Gonzalez. Gonzalez. Aye. Hill. Hill. Aye. Heisey. Heisey. Aye. Holbert. Holbert. Aye. Lee. Lee. Aye. Lundeen. Lundeen. Aye. Marble. Marble. Aye. Moreno. Moreno. Aye. Pedersen. Pedersen. Aye. Priola. Priola. Aye. Rankin. Rankin. Aye. Rodriguez. Rodriguez. Aye. Scott. Scott. Aye. Smallwood. Smallwood. Aye. Sonnenberg. Sonnenberg. Aye. Story. Story. Aye. Tate. Tate. Aye. Todd. Todd. Aye. Williams. Williams. Aye. Winter. Winter. Aye. Woodward. Woodward. Aye. Zenzinger. Zenzinger. Aye. Mr. President.
Aye.
Mr. President. Aye.
With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Senate Resolution 004 is passed. Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Without objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors. Members, the Senate will stand in a brief recess to welcome and thank our first responders who are here joining us today. The Senate will come back to order. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 049?
Senate Bill 49 by Senator Fields and Representative Michelson Janae concerning increasing the statute of limitations for certain failure to report child sexual abuse crimes.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with the House amendments to Senate Bill 49.
Is there any discussion?
Members, this is a minor technical amendment that was added, and it was based on the District Attorney Council. It just makes it more clean. I urge an aye vote and ask that we repass Senate Bill 49.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 049. Are there any no votes? Senator Marble. With a vote of 34 ayes, 1 no vote, 0 absent, 0 excuse, the motion is adopted. Senator Fields, please.
Did you repass it?
Senator Fields. Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 49.
The motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 49. Are there any no votes? Senator Marble. Senator Hill. With a vote of 33 ayes, 2 no votes, 0 absent, 0 excuse, Senate Bill 049 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senator Cook. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 035?
Senate Bill 35 by Senator Corden and Representative Benavidez concerning enforcement measures available to the Department of Revenue for the collection of delinquent taxes in connection with making an appropriation.
Senator Court.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to concur with the House.
Is there any discussion? Senator Court.
Thank you. We're concurring because all they did was put on the appropriations amendment. They appropriately appropriated the appropriations funds.
The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 035. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excuse, the motion is adopted. Senator Court.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to repass Senate Bill 35.
The motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 35. Are there any no votes? Senator Hill. Senator Sonnenberg. Senator Marble. With a vote of 32 ayes, 3 no votes, 0 absent, and 0 excuse, Senate Bill 035 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senator Tate. Senator Todd. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 046.
Senate Bill 46 by Senator Tate and Representative Varn concerning an amendment to the definition of appraisal management company to align with the definition of federal law.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 46.
Is there any discussion? The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 046. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excuse, that motion is adopted. Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 46.
The motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 046. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excuse, Senate Bill 046 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Consideration of conference committee reports. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 128?
Senate Bill 128 by Senators Moreno and Todd and Representatives Escar and McLaughlin concerning adjustments to the appropriations in the 2018-19 fiscal year for the state's share of total program funding for school finance in connection with making up reducing appropriations.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the first report on the first conference committee for Senate Bill 128.
Is there any discussion? Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, if you'll recall, this is the mid-year school finance adjustment, the supplemental. This is an annual true-up that we do to when we get the actual enrollment numbers for the kids that are in our schools to actually tie our appropriation to how many students are actually in school. Many of you know that our enrollment count came back less than was expected, both for the student population in general, but also for the at-risk student population, which meant that the state saves money in that sense because we are not allocating money for students that aren't actually there. The House made an amendment to, instead of truing up the dollars, to keep the average statewide per pupil funding constant. The reason why that is problematic is because I generally think we're not in the business of funding students who actually aren't enrolled in our public schools. And so we requested a conference committee, the Joint Budget Committee discussed the issue and decided the $12.9 million in question that school districts would receive if we kept average statewide per pupil funding constant, that we would go ahead and park that money in the state education fund so that it is protected, that it'll go to school districts in the next fiscal year. And I will reiterate that I believe it is the Joint Budget Committee's intent that any of the savings that we have from this school year, that we roll forward those savings, that we apply them to buying down the budget stabilization factor next year. I encourage your adoption of the report.
Is there further discussion? Senator Hill.
Thanks, Mr. President. Colleagues, I ask for your support on this as well. Originally, we said this was going to go to general fund, and now we've said this is going to go to state ed fund. I think this is a great way for us to recognize Colorado is on a tear, but economically, but we recognize the state ed fund was set up to stabilize changes in school funding based on the economics of our overall economy. And so this is an appropriate way to plan, I think in the long run, to make sure that we stabilize our funding and preserve money originally intended for our students to stay with that intention. So ask for your support.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I also would encourage your support for this. The education finance formula is a bit arcane. In fact, it does things like funding what are known as phantom students as part of declining enrollments across districts. I think the intention of this particular effort is to make it real. If the students are there, let's fund them. If the students aren't there, let's not fund them. So the tone of this particular ask is to make it about the students instead of about the system. And I think it is therefore worthy of your support and encourage your support.
Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of the first report of the first conference committee on Senate Bill 128. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the report is adopted. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 128 as amended.
The motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 128. Are there any no votes? Senator Woodward. With a vote of 34 ayes, 1 no vote, 0 absent, and 0 excused, Senate Bill 128 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senator Hill. Senator Bridges. Senator Sonnenberg. Senator Donovan. Senator Fields. Please add the president. Signing bills.
The president signs Senate Bill 57.
Committee reports.
March 7, 2019, Committee on Health and Human Services, Consideration of Mayor's Committee as following. House Bill 1001 be amended as follows as so amended, be referred to Committee of the Whole with a favorable recommendation that be placed on the consent calendar. March 7, 2019, Committee on Health and Human Services, after consideration of Mayor's Committee following House Bill 1068, before the Committee hold a favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. March 7, 2019, Committee on Health and Human Services, after consideration of Mayor's Committee following House Bill 1041, before the Committee hold a favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. March 7, 2019, Committee on Health and Human Services, after consideration of Mayor's Committee following Senate Bill 52, be amended as follows as amended before the Committee on Appropriations with a favorable recommendation. March 7, 2019, Committee on Health and Human Services, after consideration of Mayor's the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1010 be referred favorably. Committee on Finance, March 8, 2019. Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 1 be amended as follows as amended. Be referred committee hold the favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. March 8, 2019. Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 12 be amended as follows. As so amended, be referred to Committee of the Whole. The favorable recommendation. March 8, 2019. Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 64 be amended as follows. As so amended, be referred to Committee of the Whole. The favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. March 8, 2019. Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 65 be amended as follows. As so amended, be referred to Committee on the Whole. The favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. March 8, 2019. Committee on Appropriations, after consideration on the merits. Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 86 be amended as follows. As so amended, be referred to Committee of the Whole. The favorable recommendation. March 8, 2019. Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 94 be referred to Committee of the Whole. The favorable recommendation placed on the consent calendar. March 8, 2019. Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 99 be amended as follows. As so amended, be referred to Committee of the Whole. The favorable recommendation. March 8, 2019. Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 139 be amended as follows. As so amended, be referred to Committee of the Whole. The favorable recommendation. March 8, 2019. Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 181 be amended as follows. As so amended, be referred to Committee of the Whole. The favorable recommendation.
Message from the House.
The House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the revised of statutes. House Bill 1178, 1191, 1198. The House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the revised of statutes. House Bill 1200, business printed in the House Journal, March 7, 2019. The House has passed on third reading and returns here with Senate Bill 10568. The House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the revised of statutes. Senate Bill 32, minutes printed in the House Journal, March 7, 2019.
Message from the Reviser.
We herewith transmit without comment House Bill 1178 and 1198 without comment as amended. House Bill 1191, 1200 without comment as amended. Senate Bill 32.
Announcements. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I ask for a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Members, today is Cozy Day at the Capitol. That not cozy that you walk around with your drinks. Cozy, which stands for the Colorado Opportunity Scholarship Initiative. The Colorado Legislature created and established the Colorado Opportunity Scholarship Initiative back in 2014 with the goal of boosting financial academic support and success to Colorado students. I actually had the pleasure of assisting the staff with the initial implementation of that program when I worked for the Department of Higher Ed. And we had the bold idea to fund scholarships in a creative way by matching community-raised dollars one-to-one in order to multiply that opportunity. Today, we are celebrating Cozy's 5th anniversary, and we actually have scholarship recipients that are going to be here. They were here with us earlier, but we are bumping up against their next activity, which is at 10:30, which is a press conference, which will be downstairs in the West Foyer. Now, some of you may be receiving requests from students, from Cozy scholarship recipients today as you go about your business, and so I encourage you to get to know them. There are just these students that are here at the Capitol are just a few of the 60,000 Colorado students that Cozy has served since its inception. Since we started, 2,800 students have already received a degree or a credential, many of whom come from rural communities. And what's more, Latino and Hispanic students make up more than half of the Cozy scholarship recipients and 45% of community partner program participants. By directly engaging these students, we are addressing gaps in our higher education system and transforming the lives of families who are least likely to earn a credential. The celebration doesn't stop here. Cozy invites you to hear remarks today at 10:30 in the West Foyer, where you can personally meet and speak with students and partners impacted by this program. Then we invite you to join us for lunch today at noon. Thank you for your time, and we hope to see you there in the West Foyer.
Senator Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Members, today is International Women's Day. And I would like to ask every woman that is here serving in the Senate chambers, if you wouldn't mind, to join me as I celebrate and acknowledge women across the world today. Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for participating in this International Women's Day. I claim before you that I am a daughter of the dust, and I'm a survivor. My ancestors came over the ocean, the pond, and what we're here to celebrate is the accomplishments of those in the past and those in the future in reference to how they have shaped our country as it relates to dealing with gender equality. We're here today to celebrate women everywhere. You could be a single mom. You could be a working mom. You could be an at-home mom that's teaching your kids whatever it is to make sure that they're productive and contributing members of society. We're here to celebrate women, and we stand for the choices that women make every day to support their families. So, Mr. President, I do have a tribute that I would like to read in support of International Women's Day. The Colorado Senate, convened in the first general session of the 72nd General Assembly, hereby extends our congratulations and commendations to International Women's Day. And many of you who are here, you're in the gallery, you're on the benches on the side, you're wearing all of your costumes, and not costume, but your traditional attire from around the world. We appreciate you being here in the People's House. The International Women's Day is a worldwide annual event that celebrates women's achievement for the political and social events across the globe. We're all calling today for gender equality. We're here today to amplify and honor your contributions for women in the past and women in the future. So today, we're just here to say thank you for shining a light on the contributions that women make every day in every corner of our society and across this globe. This tribute was requested on behalf of Rhonda Fields, given on the 8th day of March 2019, State Capitol, Denver, Colorado, and is signed by our President, Senate President, Leroy M. Garcia. Thank you, ladies, for being here and participating in democracy here at the State Capitol. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Further announcements. Senator Pedersen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
I would like to recognize some of the students who are with us today who are doing some of the most important work in our state, which is supporting our early childhood education. The Buell Early Childhood Leadership students are with us today, and we just want to acknowledge you. Wave your hands so we can say hello. Thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you for your commitment to our kids.
Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Veteran Caucus meets Monday, March 11th, down at 11:30 to 1300 hours, down in the basement in room 0112, and we will be talking about veterans employment. Please join us.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not sure whether this is in the rules or not, but I'm channeling a message from our former legislative colleague, Senator Greg Brophy, who wants to remind you to spring forward on Sunday night and move your clock forward. And had you only passed his bill, you wouldn't be having to do that.
Senator Gardner, that is within the rules. Further announcements. Senator Janal.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you haven't met with your optometrists, it is Optometrist Day at the Capitol. They had a great breakfast downstairs before we started, but they're going to be coming by your office, and if they're not at your office, they're probably outside waiting for you when you leave this room. So please say hello and see your optometrists.
Having no other announcements, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I was going to remind everyone of daylight savings time. I do not need to do that anymore. So with that, Mr. President, I move that the Senate stand in recess until 11 a.m. today.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand in a recess until 1100 today.